I have some extended family that has worked in the ministry world, and it actually made them pretty cynical. What would you say to people going to ministry, like how to prepare themselves before they go in so they don't become that cynical person? And then what would you say to that cynical person that's like, wow, sometimes it seems like Christians are even worse than the rest of the world?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, I don't know your family, but I know a lot of people like your family. They come in and they expect other people to manage their internal world. And when we do that, we do get cynical, we do get offended, we do get hurt. It is not my pastors, my employers, my coworkers' responsibility to manage my internal world, my expectations, and my offense. And, a lot of church members that are burned out, offended, cynical, the number one question I would ask them is, are you taking a Sabbath?
Yeah.
And most of them are not.
Yeah.
They're too busy, and we can't negate the things that God told us to do and expect to be well on the inside.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
and that's, I can relate, as I've shared with you before, it was Johnson at Bowie at Victory that asked me that question, are you doing a Sabbath, when I was in my peak burnout season. And I was
Yeah.
like, actually, it kind of got taken away from me, and I let it happen, and then I embraced Sabbath-free life. So I better undo that. So why do you ask that question? How does that tie into the bigger picture?
Yeah, because when we don't take a Sabbath, first of all, that's a choice, right? Like that
Mm-hmm.
choosing to not manage our time and not take a Sabbath is self-inflicted. And overwhelm is self-inflicted. And I
Yeah.
think it comes down to three things. People get into overwhelm because they believe one of three lies. I am what I do, I am what I have, or I am what other people think of me. And when
Okay.
they run their calendar and their schedule and their life that way, when they're fueled by that, there's no way a human can maintain that. There's no
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that leads to overwhelm. And Sabbath is a time to rest and reflect.
Yeah.
And, you brought up Pastor Johnson. Like, I love one of the things he says is untaken Sabbaths accumulate.
Yeah.
So true. Like we can't negate that and just expect life to work
Yeah.
out and just keep going. It catches up with us.
Yeah. I once heard this guy was on a TV station talking about how the Israelites abandoned the Sabbath year for 70 years, and then they went into exile for 70 years. So that idea of like, you're going to get your Sabbath whether you choose it or whether it's forced on you.
Yeah. And I think it's funny, Jason, because we are given 52 Sabbaths at the beginning of every year. They're
Yeah.
gifts, right? And we get to choose whether we take them or not. And for a long time, I was taking a Sabbath externally, meaning, I wasn't working that day, or as Pete Scazzaro calls, the bastard Sabbath, where maybe you're not working, but you're, cleaning your house and running errands.
Mm.
And so I was Sabbathing on the outside, but still churning on the inside.
Mm.
And so it took me a while to get to a place where I could actually rest and Sabbath on the inside. And that's when I really started seeing changes in my life. So that's
Yeah.
why when I went into that crazy corporate job, working crazy hours, like it was such a jolt to my spiritual life
Yeah.
and to my values that I realized no amount of money is worth my rest, my relationship with God, my relationship with my spouse. Like, it's just not worth it.
The other thing that when I think about my own experience with the Sabbath and working every day and all the time and overworking and workaholism, a lot of it is I'm doing more, which has a lot of effects. But I think, and this is something I told a friend of mine after I'd gone through that journey myself. I told her, I said, what if you did less and trusted God to do more?
Mm,
And I think the Sabbath is also tied into that idea of trusting God, like that we
yeah.
are finite and dependent, and that God has to fill the gaps. And the Sabbath is a way to acknowledge and recognize that, and then also to let God do his thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, Sabbath goes completely against our American culture.
Yeah.
Meaning, in America, we're told there are no limits. Like
Yeah.
you can do
Be
and have it.
anything you want all the time, everywhere, all at once.
Yeah. And I just saw a commercial the other day. The tagline was, Jeep, there are no limits.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, there are. There's a lot of limits.
Yeah.
And, we are told by our society that you can have it all and be it all. And then secondly, independence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as an American, I'm independent
Yeah.
and I don't need anyone or anything. And that's
Yeah.
also
In
like
fact, you better not tell me what to do or what to think or what to believe, because no.
yeah. And the truth is, like, we need to be so dependent on God at all
Yeah.
times for all things, in good seasons and bad seasons. Like, He's our everything, and we need to rest in Him on the Sabbath and know He's got it covered. He can handle
Yeah.
it.